Welcome to another book overview episode from our Mandatory Mental Liberation series, produced by Baba Jelani Bamani Dembe, founder of Majestic Mind Matters University. I'm your royal narrator, Queen Magical Melanin, for this new book overview episode titled, They Came Before Columbus, The African Presence in Ancient America. The author of this awesome book was Dr. Ivan van Sertima. He was a prominent Guyanese-British historian, linguist, and anthropologist who is best known for his controversial and groundbreaking theories about the African presence in the Americas before Columbus. He was born on January 26, 1935, in Guyana, then a British colony in South America. His mother, Edith Barbara van Sertima, was a homemaker, and his father, Adrian Edward van Sertima, was a prominent politician and journalist in Guyana. Growing up in Guyana, Dr. Ivan van Sertima developed a keen interest in history and linguistics. He was a brilliant student and excelled academically, earning a scholarship to attend the University of London, where he studied African history and Caribbean studies. He went on to earn a PhD in African Studies from the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London in 1967. After completing his doctoral studies, Dr. Ivan van Sertima began his academic career as a lecturer in African history at Rutgers University in New Jersey. He quickly rose through the ranks and eventually became a full professor of African Studies at the university. Throughout his career, Dr. Ivan van Sertima published a number of books and articles on African history, linguistics, and anthropology, earning him a reputation as a leading scholar in his field. One of Dr. Ivan van Sertima's most controversial and well-known works is his book, They Came Before Columbus, The African Presence in Ancient America, which was first published in 1976. In this book, Dr. Ivan van Sertima argued that Africans had visited and settled in the Americas long before the arrival of Columbus in 1492. He pointed to archaeological and linguistic evidence that he knew supported his theory and challenged the traditional historical narrative that Europeans were the first to discover the Americas. Dr. Ivan van Sertima's theories were met with skepticism and criticism from mainstream historians and archaeologists, who questioned his methodology and the validity of his evidence. However, his work sparked a renewed interest in the study of African history and culture in the Americas and prompted further research into the influence of African civilizations on indigenous American societies. In addition to his work on the African presence in the Americas, Dr. Ivan van Sertima also made significant contributions to the fields of linguistics and anthropology. He was a strong advocate for the preservation and study of African languages and culture, and he conducted extensive research on the connections between African and indigenous American languages. Throughout his career, Dr. Ivan van Sertima received numerous awards and accolades for his scholarly achievements, including the Martin Luther King Peace Prize and the United Nations Peace Prize. He was also a sought-after speaker and lecturer, traveling around the world to share his research and ideas with audiences in academic and non-academic settings. Dr. Ivan van Sertima was a prominent Guyanese-British historian, linguist, and anthropologist who made significant contributions to the fields of African and Native American studies. Born in Guyana in 1935, Dr. Ivan van Sertima spent much of his life exploring the connections between Africa and the Americas, challenging traditional Eurocentric narratives and shedding light on the rich history of African civilizations. One of Dr. Ivan van Sertima's most well-known works is his book, They Came Before Columbus, The African Presence in Ancient America. In this groundbreaking work, Dr. Ivan van Sertima argued that African explorers had reached the Americas long before the arrival of Christopher Columbus in 1492. Drawing on a wide range of archaeological, anthropological, and linguistic evidence, Dr. Ivan van Sertima presented a compelling case for the presence of African civilizations in the Americas, challenging the prevailing belief that the Americas were discovered by Europeans. One of the key pieces of evidence that Dr. Ivan van Sertima presented in support of his theory was the presence of certain cultural and technological similarities between African and Native American civilizations. For example, Dr. Ivan van Sertima pointed to the use of certain agricultural practices and technologies, as well as similarities in language and art, as evidence of contact between Africa and the Americas. Additionally, Dr. Ivan van Sertima argued that African seafarers possess the knowledge and skills necessary to undertake long-distance voyages, further supporting the idea that they may have reached the Americas. Dr. Ivan van Sertima's theory was met with both praise and criticism from scholars in the field. Some praised Dr. Ivan van Sertima for challenging traditional narratives and opening up new avenues of research, while others criticized his methodology and evidence. Despite these criticisms, They Came Before Columbus remains a widely read and influential work in the field of African and Native American studies, sparking important conversations about cross-cultural contact and the interconnected nature of world history. In addition to his work on African presence in the Americas, Dr. Ivan van Sertima also made significant contributions to the study of African civilizations more broadly. His research on ancient African civilizations such as the Nok culture and the Great Zimbabwe Kingdom challenged stereotypes and misconceptions about African history, highlighting the richness and complexity of African societies. Dr. Ivan van Sertima's work helped to bring greater awareness to the achievements of African civilizations and the impact they have had on world history. Furthermore, Dr. Ivan van Sertima was a strong advocate for the importance of education and cultural exchange. He believed that by studying and celebrating the achievements of diverse cultures, we can gain a greater appreciation for the richness and variety of human experience. Dr. Ivan van Sertima's work has inspired generations of scholars and students to explore the connections between different cultures and to challenge traditional narratives of history. In his seminal work, They Came Before Columbus, Dr. Ivan van Sertima puts forth a provocative thesis that challenges conventional narratives of pre-Columbian history by arguing for the presence of Africans in the Americas long before the arrival of European explorers. Drawing on a wide range of archaeological, linguistic, and cultural evidence, Dr. Ivan van Sertima makes a compelling case for the existence of transatlantic contacts between Africa and the Americas, shedding new light on the complexities of early intercontinental exchange. One of the key pieces of evidence that Dr. Ivan van Sertima presents in support of his theory is the presence of African plants, animals, and technologies in the Americas prior to Columbus. For example, he points to the cultivation of crops such as watermelon, rice, millet, and sorghum in both Africa and the Americas, suggesting a long history of agricultural exchange between the two continents. Additionally, Dr. Ivan van Sertima highlights similarities in the use of certain tools and techniques, such as the smelting of iron and the construction of stone monuments, which he argues could have been transmitted through contact between African and American civilizations. Furthermore, Dr. Ivan van Sertima points to linguistic evidence that suggests connections between African and Native American languages. For example, he highlights similarities in the sounds, grammar, and vocabulary of certain African languages and Native American languages, such as the Manding and the Nahuatl languages. While some scholars have dismissed these linguistic similarities as mere coincidences, Dr. Ivan van Sertima argues that they provide compelling evidence of cultural exchange and interaction between African and American societies. In addition to material and linguistic evidence, Dr. Ivan van Sertima also draws on cultural artifacts and historical records to support his theory of an African presence in ancient America. For example, he points to the presence of African-inspired motifs and symbols in pre-Columbian art and architecture, as well as the depiction of dark-skinned figures in ancient American manuscripts and codices. Dr. Ivan van Sertima also highlights accounts from European explorers and missionaries who reported encounters with African-looking people in the Americas, suggesting that African travelers may have reached the New World through transoceanic voyages. One of the most controversial pieces of evidence that Dr. Ivan van Sertima presents in his book is the theory of the Olmec heads, colossal stone sculptures found in present-day Mexico that bear striking resemblance to African features. While some scholars have dismissed these sculptures as depictions of Native American rulers or deities, Dr. Ivan van Sertima argues that their distinct facial features, including broad noses and full lips, suggest an African influence in their creation. He further supports his argument by pointing to genetic studies that have identified African DNA in pre-Columbian populations in the Americas, providing further evidence of transatlantic contact. Despite the controversy surrounding his theory, Dr. Ivan van Sertima's meticulous use of evidence and interdisciplinary approach have made They Came Before Columbus a groundbreaking work in the fields of African and American studies. By challenging long-held assumptions about the isolation of African and American civilizations, Dr. Ivan van Sertima invites readers to reconsider the complexities of early global interactions and to appreciate the diversity of human experiences across time and space. Dr. Ivan van Sertima presents a wealth of evidence in his book, They Came Before Columbus, to support his theory of an African presence in ancient America. By drawing on archaeological, linguistic, and cultural evidence, as well as controversial interpretations of historical records and artifacts, Dr. Ivan van Sertima challenges conventional narratives of pre-Columbian history and offers a compelling alternative perspective on the interconnectedness of African and American civilizations. In his spectacular work, They Came Before Columbus, Dr. Ivan van Sertima challenges traditional Eurocentric narratives of the exploration and settlement of the Americas. This work provides a compelling argument that ancient Africans had significant contact with the Americas long before the arrival of Christopher Columbus. Dr. van Sertima's research calls into question the commonly held belief that Europeans were the first to discover and settle in the New World. By shedding light on the rich history of African civilizations and their potential influence on American cultures, he revolutionizes our understanding of the early history of the Americas. One of the ways in which Dr. van Sertima challenges traditional Eurocentric narratives is by highlighting the extensive trade networks that existed between Africa and the Americas long before Columbus's arrival. He points to archaeological evidence that suggests African civilizations were engaged in maritime trade with indigenous peoples in the Americas as early as 1000 BCE. This challenges the notion that Europeans were the first to establish contact with the Americas and suggests that Africans may have played a significant role in shaping the development of American societies. Furthermore, Dr. Ivan van Sertima draws attention to the similarities between African and American cultures, such as the presence of African artifacts and cultural practices in Mesoamerican civilizations like the Olmec. He argues that these similarities are not mere coincidences, but rather evidence of direct contact between African and American people. This challenges the Eurocentric idea that American civilizations developed in isolation from the rest of the world and suggests that transatlantic exchanges were more extensive and complex than previously believed. Moreover, Dr. Ivan van Sertima challenges traditional Eurocentric narratives by highlighting the achievements of African civilizations, such as the ancient Egyptian and Nubian empires, which were among the most advanced and influential in the ancient world. By showcasing the intellectual and technological achievements of these African civilizations, he demonstrates that they were capable of seafaring and exploration on par with European powers. This challenges the Eurocentric idea that African societies were primitive and technologically backward compared to their European counterparts. Additionally, Dr. Ivan van Sertima challenges Eurocentric narratives by emphasizing the resilience and agency of indigenous peoples in the Americas. He argues that indigenous societies were not passive victims of European colonization, but rather active participants in shaping the course of history. By highlighting the contributions of indigenous peoples to the development of American civilizations, he challenges the Eurocentric idea that the Americas were empty and waiting to be discovered by Europeans. In conclusion, Dr. Ivan van Sertima's work, They Came Before Columbus, offers a powerful challenge to traditional Eurocentric narratives of the exploration and settlement of the Americas. By highlighting the extensive trade networks, cultural similarities, and achievements of African civilizations, he demonstrates that Africans had significant contact with the Americas long before Columbus's arrival. Furthermore, by emphasizing the agency of indigenous peoples in shaping American civilizations, he challenges the Eurocentric idea that European colonization was the sole determining factor in the development of the Americas. Overall, Dr. Ivan van Sertima's research provides a compelling alternative perspective on the early history of the Americas that invites us to reconsider the role of non-European people in shaping the world we live in today. History is often seen as a window into the past, a way to understand how we got to where we are today. However, history is not always an objective account of events. In many cases, history has been written by the victors, shaping the narrative to serve their own interests. This is particularly true in European educational institutions, where the history taught often overlooks or misrepresents the contributions and achievements of our melanin-rich culture people, particularly our people of African descent. The indigenous name for our motherland is Alkebulan. It is crucially important that our melanin-rich children read and study history for themselves to enable them to challenge any historical false narratives that they may encounter during their studies. By educating themselves on our history, they can counteract the Eurocentric narratives that have long dominated the academic landscape. As Dr. Ivan van Sertima did in his famous book, They Came Before Columbus, The African Presence in Ancient America, they can bring to light the hidden histories and untold stories of African contributions to world history. One reason why it is so important for our melanin-rich culture children to study history for themselves, so that it empowers them to reclaim their own narratives. By learning about the contributions of their ancestors to world civilization, they will develop a sense of pride and identity that is lacking in the Eurocentric history taught in schools. This sense of empowerment will lead to increased self-esteem and a greater sense of agency in shaping their own futures. Furthermore, studying history for themselves allows our melanin-rich culture children to challenge the stereotypes and misconceptions that have long plagued people of African descent, or should I say of Alkebulan descent, for clarity. By uncovering the achievements and advancements made by Africans throughout history, they can counteract the prevailing narratives of inferiority and subjugation that have been perpetuated for centuries. This can help to dispel harmful myths and stereotypes and promote a more accurate understanding of the past. In addition, studying history for themselves enables our melanin-rich culture children to develop critical thinking skills and a more nuanced understanding of the world around them. By examining primary sources and engaging with their own perspectives, they can learn to approach history with a more critical eye, questioning the motives and biases of the authors and sources they encounter. This will help them to develop a more sophisticated understanding of historical events and to discern fact from fiction. Moreover, studying history for themselves allows melanin-rich culture children to connect with our heritage and gain a deeper appreciation for our cultural roots. By learning about the struggles and triumphs of the ancestors, they will forge a stronger connection to their own identity and develop a greater sense of solidarity with other people of Alkebulan descent. This will foster a sense of community and belonging and build bridges between generations and cultures. In conclusion, it is crucially important that our melanin-rich culture children read and study history for themselves to enable them to challenge the historical false narratives that have long dominated European educational institutions. By empowering themselves with knowledge of their own history, they can counteract stereotypes, reclaim their narratives, and develop critical thinking skills that will serve them well in navigating the complexities of the world. Just as Dr. Ivan van Sertima did in his groundbreaking work, they have the power to rewrite the narrative and shape a more accurate representation of history for future generations. In 2009, Dr. Ivan van Sertima passed away at the age of 74, leaving behind a long-lasting legacy of groundbreaking scholarship and intellectual inquiry. His work continues to inspire and provoke debate within the academic community and beyond, challenging us to reconsider our understanding of the history and cultural heritage of the African diaspora. Dr. Ivan van Sertima will be remembered as a visionary thinker and a pioneer in the fields of Alkebulan, African, Alkebulan American studies. I'm Queen Magical Melanin, your royal narrator. We trust that you have expanded your understanding through the insights shared by Baba Jelani Bumani Dembe, founder of Majestic Mind Matters University, in our Mandatory Mental Liberation series. Specifically, in this book overview titled, They Came Before Columbus, The African Presence in Ancient America, by Dr. Ivan van Sertima. Remember this, it is essential to honor the ancestors. We have a unique connection to the ancestors. They endured struggles, preserved culture, and passed down invaluable wisdom through generations. By honoring the ancestors, we pay tribute to our roots and draw great strength and inspiration from the resilience and legacy that have paved the way for our present and future generations. Ancestral reverence is a powerful way for us to uphold our identity, heritage, and cultural legacy. Here is an Alkebulan proverb to remember. If you think you are too small to make a difference, you have not spent the night with a mosquito. As a member of our melanin-rich culture, you must strive for self-knowledge and greater personal awareness. Always treat yourself kindly and seek to live a totally awesome and gloriously fulfilling melanin-rich culture life. So, like, subscribe, and share this very special melanin-rich culture presentation with everyone that you know and that really cares about you and all of yours. Thank you.